All right, we are back with another stadium review, and today we're going to be talking about the Washington Commanders.
In DC.
And we're wearing my Washington State alumni gear to be dorky, because there was a joke that we got lost in the wrong Washington wearing our Seahawks gear. But yeah.
And before we start into the reviews and everything, this was a Sunday afternoon game. It was also on Veterans Day weekend. It was the same weekend that we had been in the Baltimore area for the Thursday night game. We made a little bit of a long weekend of it and saw 2 football games. It was lots of fun. And we're trying not to let the Baltimore Ravens experience skew the results here before we rate the Commanders' experience. But
which is honestly kind of hard to do. But
it's hard to do, but we're going to try.
We're going to give it a shot. So as a quick refresher, we've got 5 different categories that we rate them on. We each rank them on a scale of 1 to 10 and talk a little bit about them. And our first category is architecture and design.
All right.
Ready? 5.
All
3.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
Harsh judge, I guess.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, it was a little bit of an older stadium, which is fine. There's lots of that in the NFL. They're not all super modern and cool. It just seemed very, very generic. It didn't have much interest to it walking up from afar, and that was a little bit of a walk from afar. I did like aspects of it, design aspects of it. I like when there's some standing room options so you can get out of your seat and still see some of the game. So they did have that. They had the fan plazas on either end of the end zone. They were just really low to the field. And before the game started, I didn't really notice it was that big of a deal. When we walked down there in the third quarter, yeah, there were people in the way, but with how low profile it was to the field level, you really couldn't see much. And then the video screens also fairly large for some stadiums, but they were low to the field and kind of hard to see from certain viewpoints. The one thing I did like, especially when we get there early to walk around the stadium, is the ability on the upper level to walk all the way around 360 degrees and see the surrounding area. It's just a shame the stadium didn't really do much to kind of capitalize on that.
It was like pretty much completely unobstructed up top, though, and it was like a gorgeous fall day, and you could see for miles. You could see DC in the distance, the Washington Monument, and yeah, I think that was like the biggest plus for me. I think I gave it a 5 just because it felt very average. Like it wasn't terribly designed. It just wasn't great either. But I do agree that the standing sections had no visibility of the field once people were actually in their seats, and the location of the jumbotrons was terrible. So yeah.
And the other thing that was kind of weird, in the upper level near the top of the stadium, where there would be seats, they had chain link fencing blocking it off, and kind of like some barriers kind of blocking it off. And it didn't look that temporary. If I would understand if it was like temporary, because they had certain, they want extra surge seating capacity, but there were no seats behind the chain link fences. Yeah. And in certain areas of the upper deck, the chain link fences kind of block your view of the rest of the stadium and everything, and it was just kind of an odd design aspect to it. Maybe they had future plans to have more seating and they just haven't got around to it. I'm not sure.
Yeah,
it was just kind of an odd design aspect.
Yeah,
so
kind of blah.
Next category is the location of the stadium and the surrounding area. So
Oh, you're being really extra harsh.
I know, I'm sorry.
So the location, we were coming from DC. Our hotel was by the National Mall. And so we took The metro, which was actually really easy to take the metro up to whatever stop it was. That was really nice. However, when you got to the stop that you were supposed to get off at for the stadium, you then had to walk 20 to 30 minutes. It was like a mile to get to the stadium, which isn't terrible. However, it was in a residential area and it felt really kind of weird to just be walking through residential areas up to the stadium. There wasn't any kind of excitement or vibe leading up to it. Yeah, it was just weird. And then leaving the stadium, we actually left a little early to avoid the mass of people going down a standard 3-foot sidewalk, corralling thousands of people back to the metro. It seemed like it would just be an absolute nightmare.
And we're in relatively decent shape, but there were people trying to make that walk that were really struggling. Yeah. And in certain areas, that 3-foot normal city sidewalk was encroached with bushes and other things. And I mean, there wasn't much of a road shoulder.
No, and they had police tape up to keep you from walking into the street, which I get, but then the weather was crappy, and so the police tape was flying around and not doing anything.
And I feel bad for the residents along that route because there was a lot of trash, and that was on the way to the game. On the way to the game, there was trash in people's yards, and it just
and on the way back, it was even worse.
It was worse.
People are just dumping stuff. There was no trash cans anywhere to put things, so they were just tossing them.
The other thing with the surrounding area, especially we like to get to the stadium a little bit early and kind of have more of an immersive experience and stuff. When you get to the stadium, there isn't anything there. People were tailgating and whatnot and getting ready, but you get at the stadium and they do have an area for fans and things to kind of hang out and whatnot, but there aren't any restaurant options or bar options if you're into that kind of thing. There isn't really any other amenities or things in that area. It's just the walk from the metro, you're at the stadium, and then it's just wait for the game. So it seemed kind of dull and boring overall. There wasn't much in the surrounding area immediately by the stadium. The older stadium, FedEx Field, is located closer to DC, and I'm sure that had a different vibe overall. This one's a bit further out. And I'm kind of detracted. So yes, I was harsh critic on that category.
Yeah, it was not pleasant for it not ideal in any way, shape, or form. I don't really know if there was a single plus other than it is walking distance to a metro station. That's the only thing that's kind of a positive. So
all right, next
category is food.
One of your favorites.
One of my favorites. Four. You were really being a little bit more harsh than me. But we're both not very pleased. So the positives were that there was a decent selection and variety of food options. And they're up on they called them I think the 500s, the top seating did have good options. When we went to Empower Field, all the good stuff was on the first level and you had to go down if you wanted it, but there was a good variety up on the upper deck as well. There were some things that were down on the 100s that weren't available elsewhere, which I get, but
some of the ones that you got excited about when we first got to the stadium were on the upper deck.
We do a lap around the lower level and then we go up and do a lap around the upper level just to kind of see what's going to be available, and so that was good. However, there were some things I got excited about on the menu, but they were not good. We got a barbecue pork mac and cheese thing, and it was
sounded nice on a
sounded
chilly
good,
fall day,
but it was cold, lukewarm, kind of chilled, and then it was just a pile of grease on the bottom of it, and it was a really small portion for how much it was.
And kind of bland and boring.
Yeah, and it wasn't good.
We've had that same kind of dish at other events, other places, and it does kind of hit the spot, and this one kind of left you wanting.
Yeah.
And we didn't get all the food options that were
No.
there, but watching people bring food to their seats, like the nachos.
The nachos were laughable.
They're quite sad that just basic tortilla chips in a dish with the liquid cheese on top, and the cheese was just a light little drizzling.
Yeah, the ratio of chips to cheese was like not appropriate.
And that was it. Just sprinkle some olives or jalapenos on there or something, make it look. But it was just chips with liquid cheese. And that was it. And so, and they had that kind of effect on a lot of the food options of just kind of generic. It's food. You're at a game. They didn't really, it didn't seem as though they were trying to feature much.
The other thing is that we had issues with concessions. Like when we got there, they had like some of those automatic concession things. And like he went in to go get it and like the coolers were locked and like none of the staff could figure out how to like unlock the coolers. And then like later we were getting another somewhere else and there was like 3 people had to like come help figure out how to use the like electronic checkout stuff. And so it was not like a good experience overall with dealing with food as well. Like the concessions people all looked really young and which is fine, but like not well trained. And the customer service was, I mean, everybody was like friendly and nice, but
I think the food vendors were much more friendly than some of the fans.
Yeah.
I had some good conversations with some of the food vendors. They were seeing our Seahawks gear. They were quite engaging. Fans, different story.
Yeah. Which takes us to our next category, unless you have anything else to add about food.
No, that's fine.
Okay, so next up is Fanbase and Energy.
Hang on.
Are you rethinking it?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
2. Did you originally have a 1?
I did, and so I had a 1 for the home base fans. The visiting team fans is what kind of knocked it up.
So they played the Steelers.
Yes.
So Pittsburgh is only like 4 hours away. So there were a lot of Steelers fans. I think it was probably pretty equal Steelers to Commanders fans in the stadium.
But the Steelers fans got there earlier and stayed later.
Yeah, and they were more vocal.
Quite. But yeah, so a 1, like honestly, like it just seemed like it was a salute to service game. The fans didn't really seem that engaged for a team that was, I think at the time they had a record of like 7-2, with a really great rookie quarterback. So anyway, it just seemed like they were kind of just going through the motions and weren't that excited. Yeah. They weren't that engaged in the gameplay. And, you know, they had their own towels that they gave out. And at one point in the stadium, they were trying to, you know, get the crowd excited and everyone waved their towels. And, well, Pittsburgh Steelers fans came with their own towels.
The terrible towels.
The terrible towels. And you couldn't even see the towels that Commander...
yeah, because they were like the burgundy, maroon color.
And all I saw were terrible
yellow
towels going everywhere. Yeah. So that was kind of a bad little marketing blip. But yeah, just watching the game and when big plays would happen, you only really heard the Steelers fans engaging and getting kind of loud and into it. And like on third downs, usually when the visiting team is there trying to convert on a third down, you see the home team kind of the whole stadium get loud, make lots of noise. That didn't happen.
Yeah.
The Steelers fans made more noise when the Commanders had a third down, and it was just kind of a weird dynamic.
Yeah. Yeah, and I would also say that we had some kind of like negative interactions with people about us being in Seahawks gear. Like, I mean, we're used, like, we definitely have gotten like a little bit of like in jest kind of like, what are you doing here kind of things, but they like, it came off kind of rude.
It was
like
more antagonistic than I expected. If the Seahawks were playing and we were the visiting team, I wouldn't have been that surprised. No. But they had a lot of, they were very opinionated about us being there and wearing our Seahawks gear and talking down to us, kind of like, but it didn't seem like it was in jest. They were like,
no,
legit.
It was like kind of a little bit. not nasty, but definitely like negative.
Could have been worse. But...
Yeah. The other thing that I noticed was as we were leaving the stadium, we ended up like walking down the ramps to get down from the 500s all the way down, and going down the ramps, they were lined with smokers. And it was disgusting. Like, we're not smokers, and like I can tolerate some smoke, but there were so many people smoking
on every level of the
on
ramps.
every level that I felt like I had to be like holding my breath. So maybe this is like a architecture design issue, that there's like not a space for like smokers somewhere else, but like the number of people smoking, like I was flabbergasted. I don't think I've seen that many smokers in a really long time. And I mean, like we see vaping a lot and like weed here, but not like cigarettes. Like it was, and they were like not courteous about it, I guess. You know, they were like facing in towards the ramps and like blowing it in towards the stadium, not like trying to make an effort to be like blowing it out. So that was something that,
and we're kind of conditioned Washington State. There are a lot of laws like not smoking within 25 feet of an entrance, things like that. A lot of people have kind of gotten a condition here to be kind of abide by those laws, and so we don't really get confronted with it that much. And it would just walking down the ramps, breathing hard, breathing in all the smoke, just level after level after levels.
And I was starting to feel sick, and like it made me cranky. But anyway.
Right. So the last category is production. So like the production quality of the organization, just kind of the game day atmosphere. All right. What do you think?
So it was a salute to service game, and we were coming off of the Ravens game where they like knocked it out of the park. So it felt like a little lackluster. I think we had high expectations because we were like, we're in DC, it's our nation's capital, like armed services, and have a really big footprint here, and it just kind of fell flat for me. Like the only thing they really did is they had like the big ass flag again, and they had a like swearing in kind of
that
thing,
was a cool aspect,
which was cool. And they had like a 3 helicopter flyover, which is nice, but like we're spoiled here. We get jets that fly over in Seattle, so we're a little bit spoiled. But it was just like, that was it. Like
the one cool thing was letting service members holding their flag that represent run out of the tunnel right before the commanders came out. That was kind of neat.
But the Ravens did better because they had like a bunch of people like running out with each player.
It is tough not comparing the two experiences.
I know. So like it was just kind of a little bit of a letdown there, and I think like pregame, that like the pregame area was kind of just like as well. Like they had a DJ and they had a couple of food trucks, but there wasn't like the same caliber of like games and energy and like watching other games on, or like it didn't get us excited about being there.
I did like that for fans of the Commanders, they did have a player come before the game, and there was a line of people that had an opportunity to kind of meet him and take photos with him. I didn't quite know who that player was, but I don't see that at other stadiums and organizations.
They had it at Levi Stadium too.
Oh, well, haven't.
That's in the future.
The production, like in the stadium,
and
maybe
the sound.
I was just about to say, and I don't know if that was like architecture design issue versus production, but it seemed like there were only one wall of speakers on one end of the stadium, and that's all. They probably had other speakers in the stadium, but we could only hear the sound coming from the one side, and it
had a really bad echo. Like at least where we were sitting. I think when we were down on the 100, like the open standing area, it was better, but up in the 500s, it was like so echoey and bad, and like the music wasn't very loud, and like it was hard to understand the announcer, and I didn't really like his voice. Wasn't super announcery.
Super announcery. What is a super announcer?
I don't know, like this like deep booming, like, you know, we get I think our Seahawks one is really good. Like you get the third down. It's like this really like big intense like voice, and this was like a little, you know,
It
I don't
kind
know.
of felt like I guess from that perspective, it did kind of seem like a college announcer almost.
Yeah. It was just like not
But-
as serious.
Sorry,
Our dog is dying for attention.
she's not patient.
Yeah, what else about production? Anything?
I don't know. I mean, just overall, it just seemed like, okay, we're here to watch football, but
Yeah.
it didn't really
And,
seem like they were trying to invigorate
Yeah,
the
like
crowd
even
too
stuff
much.
on the Jumbotron, there wasn't really much between plays to like engage the audience at
Yeah.
all. Like it was just like maybe a replay or like I don't remember there really being much in the way of entertainment. So.
I mean, everything about it just seemed kind of like middle of the road, generic. It's a football game. It's a stadium. It's there's some food here, but in all the different categories, it didn't seem like there was anything that kind of stood out or.
There was absolutely nothing that like impressed me about this experience. And I think that like how much you're paying for NFL tickets and like getting out there, like it was
It's quite a
like
commitment.
the whole
Yeah.
thing just kind of felt like I don't know, like maybe the location wouldn't have been as big of a pain point for me if it had been like a really awesome stadium and production, but it was just like this combination of everything kind of being a little
The trek to get out there
was just
and
like
everything was
And we did hear that like it's considered one of the worst stadiums. We were talking to a gal in the standing area who was like, yeah, this is one of the worst. And so maybe it is gonna end up being our lowest one. I don't know.
We'll see. But I'm still I'm thankful we had the experience to get out there.
Check that box.
Check the box. Love football. But yeah, it was tough not grading the Commander Stadium too harshly in comparison to some of the other football games we've been to recently.
Yeah. Coming off of M&T.
Yeah, but I did have higher
So-
expectations, and it did kind of disappoint me in various areas. But
Yeah, I would not go out of my way to go back. I don't.
you'd rather take the train and go to a
I would
Baltimore
rather
Ravens
take
game?
the train and go to the Baltimore Ravens game. Like we were even saying, like if somebody gave us like free tickets, like would we even go? And I don't know if I would.
Well, if it was a sunny day and didn't have anything going on,
Maybe.
well, I'd go. I'd go for free
Okay,
tickets,
well,
but-
you can take a buddy.
Okay.
All right. That is Northwest Stadium. I don't even know if we said that. That's what it's called now. It's Northwest Stadium.
Which is weird, being from the Pacific Northwest, going to Northwest Stadium on the East Coast.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
it's northwest of something.
It was like Northwest Bank or
Yes.
something. Yeah.
I know. It was just kind of...
Yeah.
That was, the name of the stadium coming from the Northwest to the East Coast. It was kind of funny.
Yeah. Yeah. And up next is Levi Stadium.
Levi Stadium.
That, spoiler alert, we already did. We just delayed on filming this video. So we will get that one recorded and up ASAP
Yep.
tomorrow, maybe. So,
Maybe.
all right.
Hope you enjoyed it.
Yeah.